Welcome, everyone. I'm Michele Cobb with Kirkus Audiobook Reviews, and today we are going to be talking about The Calamity Club from Spiegel Grau by Spotify Audiobooks. This is the new novel from Kathryn Stockett, the best-selling author of The Help, and the audiobook is narrated by what I like to refer to as a powerhouse team, January LaVoy and Jenna Lamia. And joining me today is Amy Metsch, Associate Publisher and Director of Audio Programming at Spiegel Grau. Welcome, Amy.
Hi, happy to be here.
All right, now this is kind of one of those books that people have been anticipating and waiting for. So without giving too much away, can you just give us a little summary to entice us?
Sure. At its heart, the Calamity Club is about what women do when faced with dire circumstances and how a group of women collectively can support each other and create something bigger than the sum of their individual hardships and efforts. It's about rising to the occasion against constant adversity, female friendship, and some of the darker parts of our collective history. The story itself is set in Mississippi in the 1930s, and it's a time when it was easier to exclude people than to include them. And it follows a growing band of women and one young, incredibly endearing preteen as they are faced with money problems, real estate problems, parentage problems, racism, and misogyny. But rather than taking these affronts sitting down, they are forced to take dire measures and find a satisfying and unorthodox conclusion.
And now we have two narrators. They get to play lots of parts, but we do have two distinct narrative voices. So we've got the 11-year-old Meg and the 24-year-old Bertie. Those are challenging ages on some level, especially an 11-year-old to cast. So how did you approach casting the narrators themselves?
So I've been in this business for a long time, and I knew with this project and with many that we had to shoot for the stars, but we also had to allow the words on the page, as Kitty wrote them, to speak for themselves. She's so great, Kathryn Stockett, at developing characters, and I didn't want to lose 1 ounce of their charisma or their sassy humor in the audio. January is a rock star. She slides seamlessly from one characterization to another. We had worked together recently on Bruce Holsinger's Culpability.
Mm.
And in that one, January voices two sides of a chat between a young woman and a chat bot, and she handles it with so much conversational ease. And I knew from the beginning that she would nail Bertie and her burgeoning gang of Southern women. And Jenna, first of all, draws a nice little through line from The Help
Yes.
to the Calamity Club because she was on the OG cast of that audiobook. And she's one of the best deliverers of young female voices in the business.
Agreed.
And she also brings this amazing Southern grit to the character. I loved her in Because of Winn-Dixie, and I found that there's like a certain sisterhood between the character of Opal and Meg, and that really just sealed the deal.
Oh, great points. And I'm curious, how much was the author actually involved in that casting and even in the production? Like, did she talk to them? Did she help them with pronunciations?
It's funny because I wanted to share a story about the pronunciations, but just to start from the beginning, Kitty was super involved. She had lots of thoughts on how she wanted the two main characters to sound. And she also gave very specific guidelines on some of the secondary characters as well, because they each have very well-defined personalities. At one point, I was driving my car, talking to Kitty on the speaker. She was doing pronunciations for me, and my daughter in the passenger seat was recording them on her phone.
Hilarious.
So I could send them off to the producers because it was a last minute, cobbled together, we need to make this happen moment. But throughout, she's been a terrific partner.
Well, I love that story. It's great. And, you do have such a fantastic history in audiobooks. So to think of you driving down the road and trying to do the production, amazing. And thanks to your daughter for assisting with that.
Right. It was all hands on deck.
And you mentioned before about the humor in this book. As I'm listening, I'm really enjoying some of those secondary and tertiary characters who might be quite small, but each of the narrators does a great job with bringing them to life, even if they're only around for a couple sentences. And I'd love to have everyone listen to a little bit of this. So, can you set up the clip for us? Tell us which narrator we're hearing, which character, and anything we should know before we dive into that.
We just get introduced to Bertie, and she's in the middle of doing something that you wouldn't assume a woman of her age would be doing at that place at that time in our history. But you also understand that she is resourceful, a little world weary already. It was a difficult time right after the Depression. And I think January just grabs it and captures it all right away.
Yes, and I mean we were only listening to a minute, but it is really those little shade characters that I'm like, oh, she's got them there. So let's hear.
I was the only customer left in the store. Just me and the lady at the counter up front, and the pharmacist who was standing in the back, wearing his judgy white coat up on his judgy high pedestal, grinding something in a bowl. Lord, don't make me have to talk to that man. I approached the older lady at the glass-topped counter. She was around 60, wearing a white ruffled pinafore, glasses nestled atop a bed of gray hair. I said it fast and low. "I need to purchase some Merry Widows, please, ma'am." She dropped her chin at me, said, "Oh." Then she leaned up and looked all the way down at the pharmacist standing in the back. "Well, Mr. Castell generally does these type transactions, but it don't require a doctor's note no more." She reached under the counter and set a round, silver dollar-sized tin down, protecting it with her hand. "That'll be 50 cents.
And again, that humor comes in. I feel like January does a great job with having gravitas when it's needed and also finding fun in little bits as well.
100%.
So now I was impressed. This is a very long listen. It's over 28 hours. So I'm curious, what challenges arise when you're producing a longer work like that, especially when you're dealing with multiple narrators?
The biggest challenge, especially with such popular narrators, is scheduling. And it was actually even more interesting this time around because January was in two different Audio Hall of Fame ceremonies this year during the recording
Oh my.
window. So I know she was on the road a lot. So we appreciated her flexibility in getting scheduling done. But one of my favorite behind the scenes stories is that a little birdie told me, pun intended, that January and Jenna were doing behind the scenes consulting with each other because of the different characters that they were both representing in certain sections. And we just wanted there to be as much continuity in their personifications as possible.
Well, I think they did a very nice job with that. So, obviously, this book is close to your heart. Do you have a favorite character or a favorite moment in the story that doesn't give too much away?
So I love every single character in this book. I even loved hating one of the characters in this book. And it's very interesting. We have done a huge push to booksellers, obviously, in advance of publication. And every single one of them, 201, wrote back telling us how much they loved the characters, how much they couldn't wait for a sequel, how most sad they were to say goodbye to this group of women. And I loved that. And I think that just is the embodiment of what makes this book about community so special. But there's one smaller character I was really intrigued by. Her name is Virginia Cunningham, and she's a young medical student in the South, which was obviously very unusual for women in this time. And she provides an important service to the women when others looked away and wouldn't help them.
Excellent. And I'm curious, I mean, you probably have read the print version of this multiple times with your eyes as well as listening. So, what do you think the audiobook adds to the story?
Listening to this audiobook is like sitting down with your two best friends.
Yes, yes.
And cliche aside, you will laugh and you will cry. And as we know, audiobook listening is such an intimate experience. So I think that's going to be amplified. The range of emotions is going to be amplified when listening. But I really think fans are going to read the book, listen to the audiobook, and go back and do both all over again. So it's just that good. I really have faith that no matter your medium, you're going to love this project.
Well, I concur, and I can say, I do a lot of listening when I'm out walking, and I listened to some of this in a noisy environment, and then went back and listened to that section again because I did really want to get the subtleties and the intimacy of the story. So it's been a great listen.
I'm glad you love it, and I know everyone else will too.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us today, giving us these insights into the audiobook of The Calamity Club by Kathryn Stockett, narrated by the powerhouse team, I'm going to keep saying powerhouse, of January LaVoy and Jenna and Lamia. And thank you to Spotify Audiobooks for helping us create this episode. For thousands of audiobook reviews and recommendations, we invite you to visit kirkusreviews.com and join our email list. And don't forget to rate and subscribe to the Behind the Mic podcast. It helps people find us. Thanks for listening.